Axcess Granted.
I didn't want that to be the standard. I didn't want someone else in the room to set the standard. I always wanted to do that.
The journey to get there, I think, is something, that is amazing, Nick.
Let's get this podcast started.
That's right. Welcome to Wired Access Podcast, All Axcess Granted, where I'm your host, DJ K DuB Omaha. And I just had a full life moment this last weekend. I had a wedding of my daughter, and there was a guy that I met a long time ago in what they call semi-pro football. It was a weird connection, and I'm going to have him here, Doug Nading, for those that have he is nothing but a book of knowledge for athletes, but he's looking to take what he does and go a little further with his Wyatt's Touch life coaching. Torch. Thank you. Wyatt's Torch. Thank you. So I greatly appreciate, Doug, you being on the episode. But, of course, our background goes way further than at today. But we're going to get to where you're at today and how you got there, because you played sports growing up. You and I have one thing that's major that's in common. We were both adopted, so we both know that we're both in a better situation than we ever could have been in life. So for us to kind of run paths and get to know each other a little bit, we started at this semi-pro football thing where I thought I was going to get back into playing football, and I think it was maybe 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get back into football. I haven't played since high school. Man, I'm so smart, and in my middle 20s, I got 3 kids, maybe 4 by the time. And I go to this football tryout with my buddy Joe Inselman. And all of a sudden, it didn't turn out to a tryout. It was just a bunch of guys hanging out. No one was really coaching or looking or teaching. And so then I just started this thing of just let's do this stretch. And I just kind of saw how people adapted and they took what I was kind of giving them of things to do to kind of keep us moving. The team's name was the Southside Saints. So we get through that and we start building a team. And what people don't understand about a thing called semi-pro football is there's multiple levels, this was the one where you pay money. You don't get nothing in return except for to play, unless you were good enough to get enough sponsors. And as you could see and everything, sponsors aren't always the easiest, but we do greatly appreciate the StreamYard is granted to us and brought to us by Your Omaha Beef Football organization, looking to get their 2026 season going. And as you can see with what I do a lot with the Omaha Beef, and I'm kind of one of their faces for their podcasts and stuff. So make sure to check them out 2026. But we get going, and this owner's just talking about money. And he's talking about how much it costs to play in a league. And I decided to look it up for the players that didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of background. And all of a sudden these players just go, how much does it cost? And he's like, oh, it's $2,000. And I was like, no, man, it's $500 for a team in this league. And all of a sudden I'm like, either you guys are going to go with him or you're going to come over here. So we brought about 15, 20 players. That's where I met you. You were coaching the River City Raiders. And we kind of started there. I was an offensive coordinator that's never had any idea what offensive coordinator does. I respect the game too much to give up and not give everything that I had, but this is semi-pro again. And the River City Raiders is a similar organization as the other one, where the players have to come up with money. So, I got to meet Doug and kind of how football was to him. And what I mean by that is there was players that didn't have cleats. And I know he has this on his tracker of Mr. Bass owes him money for cleats. Sorry, someone like a Mario Owens, I mean, he still tells me he owes me shoes because I gave him cleats, but we met there and it just was like a weird connection because we didn't have no knowledge of each other. We didn't really, we kind of had to hurry up and get these adults to respect what we were doing and get them on the same page. And You know, Doug, what do you remember about, like, even the first time you got to meet me out there at the good old River City Raiders?
What I remember about that day was we had a ton of people. It didn't seem that any of the coaches had any practice plan. And luckily, me being as anal retentive as I am, I made one. I had already made one just in case. So I kind of took the lead on that, on how a practice should go. And, you know, over that summer, what I learned from you was that you didn't have lots of football organization knowledge, but you had passion and you were a good person. You weren't, I didn't get the vibe. And I had, by that time, I got my degree in education. I'd coached in high school. I'd been trained by professional coaches and guys at all levels. And what I could tell from you was that you cared about the players being good people through the game of football, because that is my absolute foundational mantra of football, especially coaching young people. And I knew, you know, you compared to some of the other coaches, maybe they had ideas that they were going to move on and move up. I was coaching semi-pro because I wanted to see if my style would work with an older age, because I was trying to get on at Iowa Western. I was trying to get on at, you know, Wesleyan or Midland or something. So I was trying to test out my style. Would that work with that age group? You know, I think it would have, but, you know, God has different plans, and I found different plans. So when I ended up getting hired at Omaha South because of a former player I coached, I had an opportunity to pick another coach, and I had 3 people in mind. I had 2 guys that played some small college football and were good, and they knew their X's and O's, but they spent the whole interview talking about themselves and what they did in high school. And there was never a lesson behind the story. It was always just we this, we that. And I'm all about telling about stories about how I played or what happened in high school, but there's always a lesson at the end. Usually something I learned, something I did wrong, something that made me grow as a person and a player. And I always finish that. Any stupid, memory lane story, there was a lesson I learned, and I impart that. And I got that vibe from you, was that you weren't there to relive your glory days. You were there to learn how to coach. And being an Omaha South boy, you cared about those kids in that school, and it was about them and not you. And I chose the person that I thought was going to best help those young men be better men. And it's Omaha South. We didn't win a lot anyway, so I didn't care if we won. I wanted to see if they could become better people, and in the process, make our team better. And so I chose you, and I'm glad I did. I got a friend for life, and yeah, I mean, that semi-pro was an experience. I did a little playing in it myself, and you just don't get a lot of guys that come from a very organized football background in that level. And that was a new thing for me. And, but, you know, it's always a matter of what am I doing to make sure that I'm ready, whether anybody else is ready. And if they follow, then great. If they don't, there's not much I can do about that.
Well, and of course, with all these experience stuff, these lead to who you are when it comes to the life coaching, because you knew how important, and I think we made it important, of understanding that freshmen at Omaha South is different. Your goal is winning is a thing, and you try to teach it. But when you come from the hardcore of winning, and then you look at athletes that are just there to kind of get through it, this is something that gives them something to do. They get to be a part of something. And I think you, and Sid took that, to heart. We knew our goal was to always end with the most kids that we could end with. Did we get them productive and get over some humps? Did we have some kids that you didn't want to be there, but we still gave them everything we had every day? And of course, TK, we can't forget about good old TK. Yeah, but as for freshman coaches, we were teaching these kids beyond the game, because the game was just a flash of time for them. It was so quick. Luckily, if we had the same kids every day, of course you had a good core, but you couldn't have every kid there. And what was your biggest thing that you took as you're going through these learning stepping stones of your career? What was the biggest thing that you remember kind of your first couple years from high school coaching, getting back there at Omaha South and that type of football? And when people don't understand that type, it's a different type. It just is. You have to be.
Well, I coached at Lincoln High, and we sometimes won and sometimes didn't. That was really, I had developed my philosophy why I wanted to coach high school football before I got to Lincoln High. And then when I was at Lincoln High, I witnessed, and it really solidified my purpose. I was very, very, very blessed on who I got adopted by and where I grew up and where I lived. And I had all types of advantages and privileges, and coaching at schools with kids that didn't have those things. We had a player on our team at Omaha South that he was going to miss a JV game, because he had to go sell hot dogs down at Lincoln so they could keep their electricity on. Me growing up, that was completely a foreign concept. And, from Lincoln High to Omaha South, what I realized again was that my original foundation of why I want to coach is even absolutely more validated. My goal was to try to teach young men to be better men through the game of football. And I still, to this day, I say that, I was the OC coordinator, I guess, whatever, for the JV team when I was there. And, pregame on Saturday morning, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes was about who was going to start where. The other, 85% of it was a life lesson I decided I wanted to teach that day. And about being selfless or selfish, learning how to overcome obstacles, learning about margins of error. These life lessons, these are the things I wanted to get across more than, let's go beat Benson, let's go beat whoever. Okay, we're going to go and do our best. What is the lesson we're going to learn from today? What is the lesson we're going to learn and carry the rest of our lives? Hopefully that, it's not about football. It's about putting in the work, putting in the time, having integrity, and giving it everything I got. So win or lose, I can look back and know I gave everything. And that goes with school, and that goes with life, that goes with family, and that goes with business. You know that. And what I learned is that some of those schools that are a little less powerhouse, we'll call it, especially when it comes to sports, or their families don't all come from a lot of money. Those lessons are even more important, because margins of error are real. And if you live in a part of town where you have lots of resources, and you have parents that have extra money and have money to send you to camps and send you to clinics to learn how to play football or take tests and all that, well, your margins of error are very big. But if you live in a family or in a neighborhood where you got to go to work so you can keep the lights on, your margin of error is very small. So the lesson I wanted to teach to them was that you can't afford to goof around in class. You can't afford to not pass your grades. You can't afford to not develop discipline and hard work, because your margin of error is smaller. You don't have someone coming to rescue you, and it's nobody's fault. It's not a blame. It's just the roll of the dice. And, as you said, you and I were both adopted, and it was just a pure luck who we got adopted by, and what we made of it is what mattered, and what we learned from it and what we were taught. And, that's what the biggest takeaway I got from coaching there was. I realized I've been coaching life to my students and my players the whole time I was coaching football. And after Omaha South, I had went back to school and got a couple of master's degrees, and I was an college advisor, again, advising young people to make better decisions. And I realized, this is what I've been doing my whole life. So.
And when you look back at some of the scenarios and situations, what do you think was the hardest thing for you to accept or adapt to with the change of the scenery? Like, kind of, you brought up a good point about the struggles that we have are not the same that they have. But of course you've seen some kids. I mean, I know that I've said it before, and unfortunately one is locked up, but he had to choose either football or gang life.
Mm-hmm.
And he, it was based off from his family. He ended up choosing the gang life. year later, and he could have been one of our best offensive linemen, and I'll just leave it at that.
I know who you're talking about, and I have a friend that was coaching out at Millard South when this player would go to the Dave Remington lineman camp. And my friend was a lineman, grew up with him, and he couldn't stop talking about how good this kid was. And that he was seeing him as possibly, Carney, Wayne level playing, getting a free education.
Life-changing moment.
Yeah.
Right? And of course we've seen it with these kids, and, not everybody sees it. We see it as coaches. We walked senior night with 15 kids. Why? Because parents are working 2 jobs, trying to keep everything going. Like, those are just some of the hard things that I remember seeing that I'm like, man, people don't see this part of the football. They don't see this. They just think about the game. They don't see when the team loses 49-0 every time, but they don't see the aftermath of these kids and what has to happen then from us as coaches.
I guess the hardest part, kids coming from hard scrabble lives, that's you couldn't fill the team at the college level or the pro level without 80% of them or more coming from a hard scrabble life. White, black, brown, doesn't matter. I mean, that doesn't matter to me. That's irrelevant. I mean, how many boxers can professional, champion boxers came from wealth? Very, very few, if any. Most of them came up fighting. The hardest thing was, be as diplomatic as possible, the apparatus, administration, public education had purposely, voluntarily abdicated their role as adults, and I'm just going to use the word they used, the soft bigotry to lower us standards, whether it be on the football field or in the classroom, and thought they were helping those kids. And though I didn't come from a hard scrabble life, a lot of those kids had the same skin color as mine, and I knew what was waiting for them if they did not get their stuff together. And that was my hardest thing, was butting heads with philosophies that felt just because you grew up, lower income, poor or brown or black or whatever, white and whatever, that you can't meet the hard standards and the hard work. And that was the kids. They're just kids. I mean, they were knuckleheads just like we were, mouths and mouthing off and thinking we had all the answers. And, and I was blessed to have good coaches, teachers, and parents to straighten me out. So I never, there's always, a few, things that were different or something I wouldn't have thought of, kids having to deal with. But for the most part, the players, the kids were the same. They were the same, just typical teenagers doing typical teenage stuff. It was the adults in their lives that we saw that just decided that sympathy and pity was going to help them move forward versus hard work, character, and discipline, and understanding the consequences of good or bad choices. And that was, for me, philosophically, the hardest part. Football is just football. It's just the game. One of the really common things I would tell some of my players if we were in the heat of the game and, talking to my quarterback or talking to one of my players, and I'd look at them and go, hey, calm down. If we lose this game, are your parents going to stop loving you? Are you going to be homeless? No, then who cares? Go out there and do your best. It's just a game. What we learn from the game, what we learn from life, what you learn from the hard work you put in creating all the businesses you created, that's the thing that we carry off to the next thing, whether it's at home, whether it's network, whatever it is. Those are the lessons that matter. And the lessons I learned from football, 1,000 times more helpful in my life than football itself, as much as, I love it to death. But the things I learned that when I really dedicated myself and determined that I was going to play in college, the lessons I got from that, I carried over to finishing 2 master's degrees at 38. It got me to have the strength to risk starting my own business and trying to make it on my own. I would, it's always the life lesson, always the life lesson.
So you move on from the high school football, you start going back to school, but you still have connections with players. You still have people reaching out. You still doing workouts. How is that holding you together, even getting you through the times when it comes to having to do school? Because you still have to push yourself. You still have, where you still have to work, but yet you got people that are still looking for you to help them. Yes. Some one-on-ones with multiple players through the Heartland.
It's going to sound super cliche, and I apologize for that, but I love having those conversations. That's fun for me. Having that conversation with a young person that I worked with before I've just met, and hearing what they're trying to do, their fears, their obstacles, that to me is, I guess we'll call it a calling. I get a chance to help somebody. Maybe I'm just listening. I'll maybe ask a couple questions. I might have to point out, well, you said this, this, and this. What do and to me, that is fun. I love doing it. And so, finishing school and, having every now and then running into old players and asking them how they're doing. Sometimes it's just talking to them about what they're doing. They don't need any help, but hearing them do good and hearing that they got dreams and goals and they're working towards them. Or, I've had a few where I've sat and met for a coffee and kind of chatted and kind of see where they were at, what they were looking at. Never pass that up, because it's to me, it's fun. I enjoy it. I got a chance to speak to your kids, when you and I first were around each other all the time coaching, your kids were all little ones, little rugrats. And, now to see them grown up and healthy, strong, grounded adults, and hearing what they're doing, I didn't offer them really any. I just listened to them, and I was just so proud to see what great kids they became, young adults they've become. And to me, that's fun. That's enjoyable. I'm the guy that if we're at a family event or a picnic in the park, my eyes always go to the kids and just revel in how fun it is to be a kid and watch them and get a chance to see them explore the world. That to me is enjoyable. So.
When you think of that part and how enjoyable and it brings you into that good feeling, how much of that relates back to even just your upbringing of being adopted and knowing how lucky we are today, whether it is being in the right state of mind, being able to help others with words, guidance, and all that, when we could have been anywhere but here today? Like, does that push you harder because of that scenario?
I don't think being adopted had anything to do with it. It just kind of mattered. It more had to do with who I was adopted by. I love to talk. I've always been kind of a people person, class clown. I had, always liked being the center of attention. I loved sports. If there was a conscious thing that maybe kind of pushed me into helping others, I had a 6th grade gym teacher one time. He pulled me aside, and I've gotten a chance to run into him and thank him for this. And, I was, in 6th grade, the boys that were the athletes kind of were popular, and I was, a pretty good athlete. And I remember him pulling me aside in gym class, and he said, most of these kids aren't going to play sports after 6th or 7th grade. Let them play. You're going to be playing for a long time. And that, still remember that. And it just made me think of, you're going to still be able to do a lot of stuff. Helping someone else doesn't take away from you. And I think that just somehow is that subconscious, and when I in high school, I switched positions and I had to learn a whole new position. And in the way I think it was, might as well have been Mars to me, but I really dedicated myself to it. And, I always think, and I honestly believe this, if I would have stayed at running back, I would have never been a good coach, because I never had to really think about running back, and really, I could just do it. I wasn't Calvin Jones level or somebody like that, but I was good enough that I could just play it. When I switched to receiver, to me, it was a whole new planet. And that year and a half of working out and learning how to play it and teaching myself how to play it, I think that made me allowed me to relate and teach it better because I went through it myself, as opposed to just kind of being a natural thing. The helping people thing was just kind of, you know, it was just kind of always, I always knew I was really blessed to be good at sports when I was young, and, you know, and that affords some armor, I guess. And I just never had a role model or anybody show me that it was okay to rub it in other people's faces. And I was always just kind of heard, you know, my hero, you know, as a kid was Marcus Allen. And when I heard every year that he, you know, ran over so many yards or something, like he'd give all his linemen Rolex watches, it just, so those kinds of things stuck with me, like thank the people that helped you. And so those little things like that just kind of stayed in my mind. So turning in 1 year after school, I helped my mom. My mom used to work for foster care, and I helped one weekend just babysit kids while they were doing a big conference thingy. And needless to say, I was kind of a Pied Piper, and I was supposed to only have 10 kids in my group, and I ended up with like 25 at the end of the day. And I realized, okay, there's something here where my ability to relate to young people, and how can I, and it just kind of went from there, teaching and coaching and all that good stuff.
And when you think of those years after coaching high school ball and you're kind of trying to adapt with the times, what do you think is the thing that you might have struggled or that you had to find outside resources to help you? Because of course, as the athletes get younger for you and myself, they get nothing but more technology. They get more things that take them away from the basic training. How do you kind of help yourself, and what's some outside things that you've kind of helped grow your life coaching to turn into who you are today, to adapt with who the players are instead of going, I've got to know it all, I've got to grow with them?
Well, obviously, the college, the graduate classes were helpful in learning how to interview better, learning to be present. When you're a coach, so much is you're telling. And over time, I think if you learn how to coach well, not only are you telling, but you're getting information back, whether it's watching your players do the thing or you're listening to them. And you're realizing, okay, what I just said, even though I understand it, it's not getting across to them. I need to rethink and reflect on how I'm communicating what we need done or what needs to be better. So then you get self-reflection. Adapting, when it comes to life coaching, I was very, very blessed and lucky that a friend of mine I met at Metro Community College, where I worked for about a year. She knew how to do all the business and the technology and all the website stuff and all that. I always, when people ask, I say, she does the business IT marketing. I do the talkie. And she is, a really moral, strong, faithful person. I knew I could trust her, that we could trust each other, that we're in this together. And when I do well, she does well. And that's how that's going to go. If Wyatt's torch hits with whatever companies we can, collaborate with, she's coming along for that ride. With the young people, you have to look at it as you can't fight technology because it is part of their lives. And to fight it, you are alienating yourself. So you have to find a way to adapt to it and incorporate it, really. One of the things I love about what was the huddle, I thought that was one of the greatest things. And, I left coaching, before I really could delve into it, how you can get things you want to get across to your players, even when you're not at practice. Huddle. Hey, look at these plays, learn what you need to do, because we're going to go over them tomorrow. I mean, what a great way to just do, 10 minutes of coaching when football is over. Yeah. Say, just take 10 minutes, look at these plays, look at your responsibilities. In the end, those are all great. I'm not saying they're not, but a football is real leather, and if you don't put your hands up, you're going to get hit in the face. So all the video and all the whatever doesn't matter. If you don't learn how to catch a football, you don't learn how to block, you don't learn how to pull, you don't learn how to balance your budget, you don't learn how to manage your time, you don't learn how to turn off work when you walk in the door and be present with your family, technology doesn't matter. Those are those things you still need to learn how to relate. You need to learn how to shake hands with people and meet them in person. And, technology can be awesome in that way, but I still think in the end, we're human beings and we crave human contact, and meeting a business partner, a potential collaborator in person. I think that still is going to go a long way, as much as you can. But obviously, if you're able to make those connections, even if it's 1,000 miles away, sometimes that's what it's got to be.
Yeah, you got to take it how you can get it sometimes when it comes to connection. Yeah. And I feel like with this, I've been blessed with the fact that without this, I could have missed some interviews because, availability is accountability, and will get you exactly what you need when it comes to some of these interviews and the people's time.
Absolutely.
Not everybody's available during the day. Not everybody's available. You, of course, work multiple ways to get to where you are. Now, of course, what made you think of taking it to the fact of starting your business of Wyatt's, and how did you kind of come about that going through school? Because you're learning things, but are you 100% locked in to know this is what I need to get where I want to be?
Well, originally when I went back for my second master's, I was going to get a high school guidance counseling degree, and hopefully, be a guidance counselor in school and hopefully coach again. As things moved on, things changed. My ideas and thoughts changed, and I decided I want to do a older student. So I switched to be a college advisor counseling study. I enjoyed that. I loved that. I wish I could go back to it. I got hired on at the local university here, University of Nebraska at Omaha, and it was a 3-year contract. It was actually for a life coach, and I read the description. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. I haven't been able to crack the door at UNO, but let's just apply anyway, see what happens. And I got the job. I was surprised. And so, did that. And when the contract ended, I did actually get hired at the University of Iowa. And it was a short turnaround to move from Omaha to Iowa City. I would only have like maybe a month and a half. And, I was, and my friend who, my business partner, we were driving back, and I just kind of started thinking about some things and some philosophies I had when it came to advising, coaching, mentoring. And one of the things I've always kind of been is I don't like people telling me what to do and how to do my job and hampering me from. Sometimes you have to have tough conversations. One of the things when you and I were at Omaha South, love those coaches. I think all those coaches were really good people. I think they loved those kids, and I think they wanted the best for them. And I think we all had kind of the same ideas. It was a predominantly minority school, and there were some things I could say that other people couldn't say. And it just what it is. There's some ways I could talk to some of the players that the other coaches couldn't. And some of those conversations were tough and they were brutal, but those young black men needed to hear some things I had to tell them. And it would have been the same thing coming out of your mouth, but it's just different, and it is what it is. When we were driving back from Iowa City, I just decided I was tired of philosophies I didn't agree with. And arbitrary rules holding me back from helping people. And I decided I'm good at this. I'm good at listening. I'm good at helping. I'm good at advising people. And since I don't like people telling me what to do, I'd rather just have me be the only one telling me what to do. So just talked to my friend and said, would you be able to help me do this? Because I don't know that other part of that world. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And we are going on at the end of this month. Next week, actually, will be 2 years.
So you start this journey. What's kind of the feelings that you're going through? Obviously, you've done coaching of athletes on the field.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to take it to just in general, life in general, athlete, non-athlete, anybody.
Now remember, I've coached football players in football, but I've coached football players in life. I was always coaching life, even if somehow it had to do with football. In the end, it wasn't about catching the football. It was about the discipline, the dedication, the hard work, the sacrifice. The transition to me isn't any different. It's just people trying to overcome an obstacle. It's people trying to reach a dream. It's people trying to find peace. It's people trying to find a work-life balance. It's the same thing, whether it's on a football field, a weight room, or a college student, or 9 to 5 mom coming home and she's just not finding any satisfaction in her life. Life coaching is about when you turn 18 or you turn 22 and you get that diploma, all of a sudden you have all the answers. I know I didn't. I thought I did, but I know I didn't. And I don't think anybody does. And if you've had a parent, teacher, or coach, somebody helping you make better decisions, basically from kindergarten to senior year in high school and maybe college, why would that stop just because you're 22 or 23 now?
Because I know it all, right?
Right. And then we find out we don't. So the whole point of life coaching, the whole point of doing this was that I saw a need. I'm good at it. And not only am I good at it, but I love doing it. It's fun for me. It's no different than the private football coaching I do, where even though we're scheduled for an hour and a half, if we stay there for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I don't really care because it's fun. And, you're not getting charged more. I was like, if you want to sit for 45 minutes and you're only booked for 20 minutes, I'll sit for 45 minutes and talk, because to me, that's fun. That's joy, because I feel like I'm being helpful to somebody else. And so that transition, the business was the biggest transition. Learning one of the first networking events, I ran into one of our former players. Did not recognize him. He recognized me. I did not recognize him.
And let me guess, he still said, "Hey, coach," because once you've earned that name, it's something that's earned, that's never given away. And I always tell people, like, that's how you know you made an impact, when they just don't go, Douglas, and they go, Coach. Every time you hear that coach.
I've only had 2 kids ever call me that I also coached in football, but I was a big brother to them in Lincoln before I had them on my football team. So they knew me as Doug already for like 5 years. There's the only 2 great kids. But other than that, no one's, but I've run into all my old coaches, and some of them, I can't really say, I can't say I respected all of them, but they were my coach. So I call them coach. Just is what it is. You're still coach. And coming back to your question, can you repeat it for me real quick?
Man, you act like I wrote something down. No, my biggest thing is just, you're going through the change of doing.
The network. What was the biggest? Well, when I saw this guy at the networking event, I had realized it was one of the first ones I went to, and being in education, as long as you have, you're very much in a bubble. And I had realized it was a good revelation. I realized up until then, all my clients had been my students or my players. Kendall shows up to practice a couple of days and he's real quiet. Usually he's a big, loud, boisterous guy, and he's quiet. Something's going on. Let's have a conversation with him after practice. See what's up. What's on his mind that he's not, firing off the line like he used to every day, and now he's all quiet. It's easy to see that. Now that I'm on, doing the business side of it, now I have to go find my clients. That was the biggest transition that I'm still in the process of mastering, is that I just don't get to sit there and people come up to me. I got to go to them. I got to go shake hands. I got to go send out emails. I got to do the networking events and hand out cards. And that was the biggest change in me of, 25 plus years of having my clients brought to me, versus now I got to go get them. And I got to show value of why they want to come to me. And that's, that's a learning process like anything else. And, looking at myself 2 years ago and eyes like as big as saucers, scared out of my mind and thinking I don't want to bother anybody with my stupid story. And now I'm making cold calls to big companies here and offering services. And so I'm proud of getting over some of those obstacles and humps and putting some real hard dedication into it, going, if I want my dream to work, I got to put in the time.
How are you finding some of your early connections to help your current situation? And how could some of those also hinder on the fact of maybe things didn't end right? Of course, we're always trying to. I think in this day and age, some people are easier to get up and get out instead of leaving the right way and making sure that bridge is always there. And it's the hardest thing to do, whether it is to hold what you feel you need to say. But I know that, I try everything I can to make sure those bridges just never crumble. It may not be the best bridge, but there's still a bridge where if I needed to reach out, I still could reach out and touch them and talk to them, and maybe not get the answer I want, but I get something, at least an acknowledgement that I didn't leave that bridge terrible.
I think you have a good point, and it goes into kind of what I was thinking of. I joined the Miller Business Association, and, obviously the first few times scared out of my mind and couldn't. I was actually at a loss for words, Kendall, if you can believe that. But, it's kind of the same thing you were saying, that, just off to the side of, you just got to keep showing up. If you want that bridge to keep strong, you got to keep reaching out. If I want to make connections, if I want to get the name out, I got to keep going to Miller business events. I got to go to networking events. If somebody there invites me to something, I got to go to it, because they're laying out a hand for a bridge. If I don't reach out and grab that hand, well, that bridge might get cut off. And luckily I was a few weeks ago, somebody from there invited me to go down to, there's another networking group that's like nationwide called the Million Cups. And I went down there and kind of liked it. And she goes, do you want to come back next week and do a podcast? I'm like, okay. And, and I did. And, and that was just because I kept going to the networking events at Miller Business Association. So it's just a matter of, like you said, you just got to show up every day. You want to be great on the football field, you got to go to the weight room every day. You got to go to the track every day. You want to have a great tow truck business, you need to go every day. You want to have a good lawn care business, you got to get up and do it every day. You got to keep shaking those hands. If I want to make Wyatt's torch, meat, the funny thing is with the Omaha beef, the only reason I met them because I was going to go with my business partner, because the networking event was at the escape room, and she loves that stuff. And she was going to go, but it just worked out. She just couldn't get there in time. So I was there, and I was like, well, I'm here, and the beef guys walked in, and I thought, a year before I might not have said a word to them. A year later, I'm like, wait a second. I know everything about football players. Who better to help coach these young guys that are trying to maybe get a peek at that next level, trying to get their life figure, whatever. It's like, who better than someone who's done it and coached it? So again, I just had to go, and going is, hopefully, we'll see if that's God's plan. That's where I'm supposed to be. We got some good connections with the Omaha beef. But it was just because go to these things. You never know who you're going to meet. I've had so many more people call for locksmith services just because they know I do that too, just as a side gig. And I'm just like, hey, whatever keeps the lights on, while I keep working on this other thing. I like locksmith.
Up to the wedding, he's like, hey, Kendall, make sure that your DJ knows if anybody makes an announcement about not having their keys, they locked them. I got them. I go, so do I. It's out in the truck.
Yeah, but your father of the bride, you can't be bothered with that stuff.
Or the fact that he goes, hey, I started talking to the beef. Oh, really? Have you seen what I've done with the beef? No, you do stuff with the beef? Yeah, I'm only going on year 3. I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
That's just because I don't follow anybody on Facebook.
I know you got to get that social media, man. Because
I'm on Facebook.
You're
I'm
also
on
going to
it.
see some of your clients' information there, that whether it's how they post things, what they do, because emotions can be brought into that, right? I mean, with
First of
everything that
all,
you do.
I would never follow a client on Facebook. That's dual role, and that's conflict of interest.
Okay.
2, I have integrity and I don't discriminate. I follow no one. That way everybody's treated the same.
Dang it. I'm not followed by Doug Nading. What is going on?
And when you have events, they come up. When your events come up, I see those.
Yeah.
But social media has 1,001 awesome uses and 1,001 horrible results sometimes. And
That's where you're blessed on all those people that are watching, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Twitter, whether you're watching on Facebook. We greatly appreciate all those checking this out. You know, my guy here is starting a new business. He's on year 2, but it's about life coaching. And Doug, when you look at, year 2, what do you think is one of your biggest changes that you're adjusting is there anything that you guys kind of laid stone down saying this is what we want to hit for?
Well, alluding to, or referring back to the beef conversation, earlier this year, we started pivoting from just focusing on trying to get one-on-one clients and started realizing, let's see if we can partner with private companies, especially call centers, recruit staffing companies. That's some high level pressure kind of jobs. I remember doing those kinds of jobs, and who's there for them. Last winter I worked for a nonprofit that worked with young people, elementary school age kids that had a lot of trauma, a lot of problems in their life. And I had realized, coming home from a day there, it's like a school, I was sapped. I was either angry, sad, depressed, or I was just drained. And I thought, who's helping the people helping these kids? And then the slogan, who helps the people that help others? And so we started pivoting this year to really kind of looking at how we can better frame our services to help those who spend their day helping others, whether it's, talking on the phone, whether it's recruiting, whether it's staffing, any real way that people spend their day helping people. Salesmen spend their day trying to help someone, get a good deal, find a good product or service. And, that takes energy. And, 9 times out of 10, those customers aren't always the most pleasant. That takes it out of you. That can, and how do you get yourself ready for the next client where you're happy, you're excited, you're giving positive energy? Well, a life coach can be that respite, whether it's a 20-minute, 30-minute, or, an hour conversation where you get some of that off your chest, some stresses off your chest, and you can refresh, refill your cup, and go talk to that next client you're meeting at the, the house or the business you're selling or whatever it is, and be present, be fully present and there for them because they're a new person. So that's been the real pivot this last year, is looking at how we can help people who help others.
Well, I like the fact that you brought up the Omaha Beef, of course, with all the stuff that I do for them, but I've seen these players and what they go through and how, like, people forget that at any level that these young men, whether they're having family that's not here, most of them, it's not like it's this big payday
Right.
for anybody. They're still getting to do what they love. They're also getting opportunities, if they keep themselves right, where they can move up and out of where they're at currently. And I think a life coach has to be something that has to be thought about because of that certain point right there, where you can help these athletes understand that consistency in the being present every day, no matter how hard, how easy it is, especially in that atmosphere where it's not like this big dollar sign that we're talking about here.
Right.
It's not like millions. We're not millions.
Well, the odds of a Division I superstar lasting more than 3 years at the highest level it's a 1,000,000 to 1 shot. And the Omaha beef is a step. You're getting video, you're getting film. And, and if you're lucky, you can move up to that next level of arena ball quickly enough. And, we have to be honest with the numbers. The odds are against them. That, at some point, we're all told, just like they say in Moneyball, we're all told at some point we can't play the child's game anymore. It just is what it is. But you still have a whole life ahead of you. One of the blessings I got from my family was that, my whole idea was that I'm going to play for the Raiders. There's no question that was going to happen. And when I say that, I mean, as in, I'm going to do everything necessary, every lift, every run, everything. I'm going to do what's necessary to get there. It's not going to be, I didn't mean it as in, I'm just so good. It was, no, I'm going to do everything I can do to get there. But I also knew the odds are I'm not. And I also knew I need to get an education. I need to learn, I need to learn these job skills. I need to, learn career skills, life skills. And for these players, yes, they're here. A lot of them are from out of town. It's like being, in college in a way. You're away from family. You're away from those resources and that support. And, what's weighing on your mind? Is it something small, like I'm just kind of stressing about this, or is it something big? Something's going on with my mom or dad at home, or me and my girlfriend are kind of fighting and everything. Well, if you're bringing that onto the field, it's going to show up. As a life coach, the whole goal is that I'm going to help you balance the off the field life. So you have a plan, you have a resolution, you know how to handle something, so you can put that aside when you get on that field and give it your 100%. If your goal is that next level, if your goal is to get that next chance to maybe get looked at, the last thing you can be bringing onto that field is you're worried about your bills, you're worried about your girlfriend, you're worried about your mom or your kids at home. You can't have that. You just can't. And I think that's, not to get into the weeds too much, I think people forget, if you go find, whether it's football, track, whatever the sport is, at the elite level, the Michael Jordan, the Jerry Rice, the Tom Brady, the sacrifice they give up is a lot of times family. I just actually saw an interview with Shaq, and he mentioned he was talking to his boys about, they really wanted to do this basketball thing. And they didn't come up the way he had to, his family, we're a normal middle-class family. And, and they obviously have all possible privileges you could ever have. But he explained to him, he said, you understand what the sacrifice is. And as young people, they kind of said, yeah, Dad, we know. And he's like, how many birthdays was I at? How many school plays? How many, that was the trade-off I had to have to be the best I could be at my sport and provide for my family. Whatever that trade-off is, whether it's business, whether it's sports, we have to, determine, is this thing we want to do? And what are the things I'm going to have to decide? That's the trade-off. I can't go do this. I can't go, hang out at, till 4 a.m. I got my kids at home. I'm going to be at home with my kids. That's my trade-off. That's what matters. Or it's, I got to work a 12-hour shift. That way, my wife, my kids, or, my husband, my family, we all have food and shelter. These are all trade-offs. And finding that balance, it can be difficult. And finding that goal, finding that path, finding the thing that's holding you back is what life coaching is about, is helping you spot it. Because most of the time that I have worked with young people, whether it's high school or especially college age, so we're talking this early 20s, mid 20s, most of the time they have the answer. They either just cannot put it into words, they don't know how to put it into action, or they're not aware that they have the answer and they are also their own problem. And sometimes it's just having that third party objective person having that conversation, and the light goes off. Now that they figured it out, this is what's holding me back, or this is what's this. Now it's okay. What do we do? What are the plan we make to get you past that hurdle? And that's what a life coach does. They don't give you answers. They help you find the answers yourself. Because if I just give you the answer, Kendall, It's just like anything else. If something's just given to us, it's not as appreciated as much as when we earn it. And I know as a hardworking man like you, I know you absolutely know that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, even why I stepped out on one of the last episodes where I went out of my comfort zone and I had the volleyball 360. I had it where I wanted to bring limelight to different parts of sports, but it's back to life. And that's why it was very important, once we got in conversation, and things happen for a reason, things happen for the right time for a reason, because this is just another notch in the whys of what I do, of giving the opportunity for a business like yourself, but also given the athletes that are the ones that follow us, a lot of the preps and some of the parents of those preps, of understanding that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to find outside resources, because in this day and age, most parents are working 1 to 2 jobs, depending on if you do have both parents working. The stresses are way different than when we were growing up, whether it is, the money factor, whether it is just trying to even make sure food's on the table at the right time to these kids. Because I know I asked even like a Busty about powerlifting kids, and he goes, he was the old Omaha South powerlifting coach, went out to Midland.
Okay,
yeah. What is your biggest difference? And he goes, well, when you think of powerlifting, everybody wants to talk protein and talk all this chicken and all this stuff you eat. Then you have to sit there and you have to look at the kids or people that you're talking to and read the crowd. And what I mean by that is, you look at a South Omaha kid and maybe he couldn't afford those 4 chicken breasts that they need to eat for that. So then he has to turn it into just pure calories. You just need these amount of calories. You need to get, if you need to eat 5 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, that's what you got to do. But it's like seeing those different cases and finding ways and opportunities with different businesses, whether it's the Max Out Mindset with Dr. Weidman, and of course you here giving, lifestyle, life coaching. And it's just making sure that these athletes know that, one, you're not alone. Parents, you're not alone. You just might not know the resources, but when you see episodes like this where it gets a little deep, and then you might listen to an athlete that has talked about, I remember talking to JoJo Doman one time, and he just talked about having a toolbox of different things as an athlete, and Brian Inselman is he owns Achieve Physical Therapy, but when those athletes come in, they're also having other therapy. They're asking about, girlfriends, moms, grades. It's a getaway. It's kind of like the barbershop. I mean, you've had the shaved head forever, so you might not know the barbershop reference.
I know.
But the barbershop is a therapy, and sometimes, I know that I've asked barbershop, like I really want to just go in one time and just interview a barber that deals with that kind of thing and just share it. Like, people find ways to communicate, and I think it's comfortable. And of course, you said that you work with groups, you work with individuals. How can people find you, and kind of what's kind of that process for you? Like, how do they, once they get a hold of you, how does it kind of go into the opportunities, the possibilities?
Well, you go to Wyatt'sTorchLifeCoaching.org. And what you do is you sign up for a free 30-minute intake session. And what we'll do is basically just have a conversation. I'll ask a few pointed questions, but for the most part, I'm going to listen and see what it is you want to work on. What is it that's weighing on your mind? What's something that's in your way? And determine whether I have the skill set to help you. I've had some clients that I was absolutely able to help them. I had some others that it was beyond my training professionally or my skill set, just by experience, that I could not help them. But I was able to refer them to the kinds of people that could, whether it was a business, executive C-suite guy, which I did have. And I was like, that is, not even remotely my skill set, but I do know someone that's really good with that. And they know that world, and they know how to navigate in that world better than me. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted that kind of coaching. That doesn't mean I can't life coach into somebody who's an executive, and then I had a couple people that they needed professional mental health counseling, because the problems they were having was well beyond my. Did I want to help them? I wanted to. I wanted to keep them, but I knew my integrity and my guilt would be just immense if I said something and something bad happened, because it's not my training. So I know several counselors in town, and I was able to connect them to the proper resources. So what you would do is we would have that conversation, and we would determine kind of if the client feels like I'm a fit and that I'm going to be able to help them. I'm going to determine if I'm a fit and if I'm going to be able to help you. You know, if we use football as a reference, if I get a kid that's a lineman and he wants me to teach him how to block, I'm not the guy to really teach you how to block like a lineman. I'll make you fast, but that's a whole different skill set. And then after we do a 30-minute intake session, we make that determination, and then you would sign. You can go ahead and sign up on the website for one session at a time, or you can sign up for 3 at a time. You get a little discount when you do 3. Most coaching philosophies believe the minimum amount is about 8 sessions to get a habit or something going, a discipline, a routine, whatever it is that you're trying to work on. Anything shorter than 5, and that's really pushing whether some real solid change has been made. You don't want to go, it's not therapy either, where, you know, if I'm still meeting with a client after 18 or 20, there's something else going on that I don't have the skill set to deal with, or I don't have the licensing, and they need to see someone with professional counseling skill sets, because there's something else happening that is deeper than me just telling them. One of the differences, and a lot of people ask, is the difference between life coaching and therapy. And the easiest way to put it is therapy deals with who you are right now in your past. What in your past made you who you are now? Whereas life coaching deals with who you are now and who do you want to be in the future, whatever that is. That means just getting over painful hurts from the past. Well, okay, we might dip our toe in that a teeny bit, but most of it's going to be, okay, this thing happened in your past as a kid. What can you do today that will help you move past it? Let's start making that a daily routine. What's the thing that's going to, you know, or maybe you need to have, you know, let's say it's my mom hurt me when I was little. Well, let's have how do we have that conversation with ourselves and then with your parent to move forward? So that's the difference between a life coach and a therapist. A therapist deals with your present and your past, whereas a life coach deals with your present and who you want to be in the future.
Well, I greatly appreciate your message, your time, your availability, and of course, the opportunity for those who are listening. Don't be afraid to check them out. We'll make sure that it's on all of our posts when we get some of our short reels done and all that. Doug, you know, I can't believe this complete circle, because of course the one person I referred to work out with was now my son-in-law. And I could say that as of Saturday. And it's just awesome to see that you, of course, made an impact on him for the goals that he was trying to achieve. But you also knew, like, you can't make it for them. You know, you were very direct. There was not a one time that I felt you were offering something that someone couldn't use. And what I mean by that is you weren't going to oversell what you do. You're telling them, what's your goal? I'm going to tell you how to get there. You're not going to like it. You're not going to, you might throw up. You might, you know, get pissed off. You might get pissed off, but I could tell you the kid ran the fastest 40 he's ever ran in his life. And he didn't get to go where he wanted to. You know, he took the back road, but he still did something that, you know, people nowadays just can't fathom, of getting their body to do something that you thought you weren't supposed to do. So I greatly appreciate that part. And of course, being a part of the family, you know, and being able to, you know, give me a little bit of feedback on my own family. You know, we were very young kids who had kids, and we're just now living the 40s, you know, with our kids all grown, and just seeing them be productive adults and have a purpose. It's for sure a blessing. My wife is the number one behind that. I just show them the work ethic and the dedication to what we do. Hence why I do what I do here. You know, whether it's Wired Access, All Axcess Granted, whether it's Wired Access cover, whether it's the Omaha Beef, everything to me is a Super Bowl. We're always trying to tell stories. In fact, the one today that I dropped on my other podcast was of a 16-year-old who is looking for 2028 Olympian dreams, and she's going to be there. Her godmother is Jackie Joyner Kersey.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So she's, Jaya Patello from Bellevue West. She is out there running amok, and we're going to be watching her in 2028. She's already been meeting college kids, and it's just those kind of things of seeing these athletes and people not only be able to do these high tasks and go for dreams that some people just could never live for. You know, I wish I could have had something that big in my life that I thought, you know, but my goals are different, right? My dreams are different. My dreams is making sure my kids are out there, making sure that we could also provide any feedback and anything for young athletes, young parents, because I know what it is to be on that other side where you're like, gosh, there's no book here. There's no guidance. But if you take a little bit, a piece of different aspects of what you can get from people, whether it is life coaching, max out the mindset, looking at these athletes who will also tell you, as human as they are, you know, they have the same struggles and issues. It's just how did they get over them and how did they accomplish it? So I appreciate you being a part of it, but also want to make sure everybody checks out Wyatt's Torch.
Wyatt's Torch, lifecoaching.org.
Wyatt's Torch. I appreciate you. And
thank you very much, Kendall.
We'll see you guys on the next Wired Access All Axcess Granted. Remember, the best part is this is also a part of the Character Chronicles partnership. What does that mean? You can go to characterchronicles.com. Don't forget, like this video, subscribe our channel. But if you go up to his podcast and you don't see our channel on the front, it's down there on their Wired Access, All Axcess Granted. We're there, but also you can check us out at YouTube at Wired Access. That's AXCESS. See you guys next episode.